This is our wedge project.
The first strategy that we selected was efficiency transport. Today, there are about 60 million cars in the world, and it's predicted that there will be about 2 billion passenger vehicles on the road in 50 years. A wedge of emission savings would be achieved if fuel efficiency of all the cars projected for 2060 were doubled from 30 miles per gallon to 60 miles per gallon. We believe that it is important to increase automobile fuel efficiency to decrease carbon emissions. The cheap cost will also make it seem appealing.
The next strategy we used was efficiency buildings. It's been projected that the building sector as a whole has the technological and economic potential to cut emissions in half. Cutting emissions by 25% in all new and existing residential and commercial buildings would achieve a wedge worth of emissions reduction. It is a cheap way to make buildings more efficient and challenges like consumer demand easily overcome.
CCS synfuels capture and store CO2 during synfuels production from coal. When coal is heated and combined with steam from air or oxygen, carbon monoxide and hydrogen are released and can be processed to make a liquid fuel called a synfuel. This will help cut carbon in both transportation and direct fuel use.
Fuel switching electricity will replace all coal-burning plants with natural gas plants. Because of the lower carbon content of natural gas and higher efficiencies of natural gas plants, producing electricity with natural gas results in only about half the emissions of coal. It is a cheap way to produce electricity, and if natural gas remains abundant, it can last for a long time.
Nuclear electricity is another way to get rid of coal-burning electric plants. In the 1960s, when nuclear power was promised as a substitute for coal, was most highly regarded. A global installed nuclear capacity of about 2,000 billion watts was projected for the year 2000. The world has about 1/6 of that envisioned capacity. If the remainder were to be built over the next 50 years to displace coal-based electricity, roughly 2 wedges could be achieved. Expanding nuclear power can make production from plants.
Windy electricity can also produce electricity by cutting down carbon emissions. This increase in capacity would require deployment of about 1 million large windmills. Based on current turbine spacing on wind farms, a wedge of wind power would require a combined area roughly the size of Germany. However, land from which wind is harvested can be used for many other purposes, notably for crops or pasture.
Biofuels can replace petroleum fuels, creating a lesser dependence on petroleum. Because plants take up carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, combustion of biofuels made from plants like corn and sugar can simply return borrowed carbon to the atmosphere. Thus, burning biofuels for transportation and heating will not raise the atmosphere's net CO2 concentration. Less reliance on petroleum will help lower carbon emissions.
Forest storage is a cheap way to halt deforestation. Land plants and soils contain large amounts of carbon. Land plant biomass can be increased by both reducing deforestation and planting new forests. Halting global deforestation in 50 years would provide 1 wedge of emission savings. If carbon is stored in a new forest, the future does not have to include a fear of deforestation.
Although the taxpayers will have to pay for these projects, they will benefit from the energy that they receive by cutting carbon down. Energy companies will have to replace their coal-burning electric plants with nuclear or fuel-switching power plants. They will, however, produce more with their new power plants.
Environmental groups will be happy about the amount of carbon that is being cut because of these strategies, but they may be against waste from nuclear electricity. Manufacturers will be happy because they will be able to produce things without paying a massive amount of money.
Industrialized country governments would be the least happy ones due to the fact that they would have to pay for all of these projects. They want to continue to use resources that are not friendly to the environment because it is cheaper. But developing countries will like this because pollution will be reduced, and it is possible that jobs will be created in order to produce what is needed.